lukewarm start, actually, for the Chinese version of Twitter. The microblogging site initially raised a less than expected $286 million during its flotation. It did rebound during trading, finishing up about 19%. That's certainly not a bad performance, but it was being compared to the IPO of the real Twitter. Remember, back in November, Twitter shares soared 73% during its debut, so not quite a performance on the same scale. Still, the chairman of Weibo said that he was very pleased with his company's performance.
Obviously, I'm very happy, and especially given the market, has not been doing great in the last couple of weeks, and I think the performance has been terrific for us.
Now, Weibo did give a bit of a boost to Wall Street on Thursday. Thursday was actually the last day of the trading week in both the US and Europe. Markets are going to be closed this Friday to mark the Easter weekend. We saw the S&P closing up just slightly, but it did represent a gain of 2.7% over the past 4 days. That's the best weekly gain since July of last year. We're looking at a mixed day of trading in Asia. Shares in Shanghai have fallen to a 10-day low. This as the government in Beijing said that new home prices had risen 7.7% in March from a year earlier. That's an indication that there's a slowdown in momentum for the property market there.
All right, well, let's turn to the skies now. Here in France, an aircraft manufacturer thinks that Africa is the next land of opportunity. That's right, Kate.
Yeah, struggling airplane manufacturers around the world really have been looking mostly to Asia and South America for economic expansion. But the European manufacturer ATR is turning its attention to Africa, welcoming a Pan-African delegation to its headquarters in Toulouse this week. From there, our correspondent Chris Bachman sent us this report.
30 African ambassadors in Paris on their way to the HQ of the world's biggest turboprop maker, ATR, based in Toulouse. The playmaker believes Africa is ripe for business and wants to start by winning over the continent's envoys. With economic growth in much of Africa at close to 7% a year, the continent needs to invest in new transport infrastructure to boost trade even further.
And we are just at the beginning. After Asia and Center of America, South America, the next one will be Africa. And the economic growth and the traffic are two parallel lines.
ATR argues it'll be cheaper and faster for African countries to develop their air transport networks than road system. It's a message that seems to be getting across.
We are basically an agricultural country. We produce a lot for ourselves, but also for the neighbors. And it is very important to have a transportation network to reach the markets.
And people don't have time to spend 6, 7, 8 hours on the road, so this cuts that time and gives people time to go to see an area where they want to put up a factory, say in eastern Uganda or northern Uganda. They can quickly go up, look at the terrain, look at the opportunities, fly back, take a plane back and get out of Uganda.
The ambassadors were shown around the airplane maker's factory floor. Both ATR and its chief rival, the Canadian plane maker Bombardier, see a market for 400 turboprops in Africa.
Unthinkable just a few years ago, ATR believes it could do as much as $8 billion worth of business with Africa over the next 20 years.
Let's move on to some of the day's other business headlines now. 2 former executives of Anglo-Irish Bank have been found guilty of fraud in the first conviction related to the banking crisis that brought Ireland's economy to its knees. Patrick Whelan and William McAteer were found guilty on 10 counts of making illegal loans that were designed to prop up their ailing bank's share prices. The same jury in Dublin earlier acquitted the former chief executive on similar charges. Anglo collapsed in 2009, costing Irish taxpayers more than €30 billion. In the US, the man who oversaw the cleanup of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill has reached a deal to settle charges of insider trading. Keith Seelan, a former BP employee, was accused of selling $1 million worth of BP shares after receiving information about the severity of the spill in 2010, information that was not publicly available at the time. He neither admitted nor denied the allegations, but agreed to pay over $224,000 to settle the lawsuit. And a vote of little confidence in book giant Barnes & Noble from the company's founder. Leonard Riggio reduced his stake in the US book chain to 20% by selling shares worth $64 million. Like other traditional booksellers, Barnes & Noble has struggled to compete with online retailers that offer lower prices.
All right, Kate Moody, thanks very much for that business update. We'll be speaking to you a little later this morning. Time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines here in France with Florence Villeminot. Good morning to you, Flo. Now, French papers are not letting it lie.